Raw. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this reflection on the Monster Cinematic Universe, which is one of the, well, I don't want to say least popular ones, because there are quite a few fans of this series, but it's certainly one that isn't talked about as much as, say, Marvel or DC, but whatever. I'm joined tonight by my friend Jack the Film Fanatic, and we are going to be talking about all four movies in this franchise, so that'd be Godzilla 2014, Kong Skull Island, Godzilla King of the Monsters, and Godzilla vs. Kong, which is the most recent one. So, yeah, why don't we just start where it starts, if we can remember what actually happened in Godzilla 2014. So, ladies first, Jack. I'll let you tell me how much you adored this movie and how much you want to marry that Godzilla monster.
I'll let Lee go first since he's a lady. Oh wait, sorry, he's not here. Godzilla 2014. Well, I'm gonna have to do this again.
Wah, 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 wah. You fucked it up, Gareth Edwards. You fucked it real good.
Yep, we certainly did. Oh, fucking hell. Godzilla 2014. Well, yeah, that's the best way to sum up this movie. This is my reaction, literally my reaction in the cinema to this film. Yeah.
Well, it's good to know you didn't need to buy a sleeping aid after leaving the cinema.
Yeah, no, Godzilla 2014. I remember seeing this in the cinema with my dad and my brother back in 2014, 7 years ago, which is hard to believe. But yeah, I remember seeing it in the cinema, and I remember the reviews of this being very good. And I just did not like this movie. I found this movie to be boring as fuck. And then I rewatched it. I rewatched it a couple of years ago when I was going to review Godzilla King of the Monsters, and I have to say my opinion hasn't changed on this film. You know, going in there second time, I thought, well, the critics really like this, so you know, I got the DVD. Maybe I'll like it a lot more on rewatch, but it's just a terrible film. I'm sorry, I don't care what the critics say. I don't care if a lot of people like this film. I just think it's garbage. It's the most boring film I think I've ever seen. Literally,
So
I fell asleep. The good things, well, the little good things I'll get to in a minute, but it's literally one of the most boring films I've ever seen. I remember literally falling asleep watching this film. It was that boring, and rewatching it, I was struggling to stay awake. I mean, what really pisses me off about Godzilla 2014 is that Godzilla is a cameo in his own fucking movie. You know, the film's called Godzilla. The film is called Godzilla, and he's in it for fucking 10 minutes. Are you kidding me?
I think they should have changed the title to Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's who we focus on for most of the film. And the film is fucking false advertising, because I remember the trailer for this had Bryan Cranston, and he dies within like the first half an hour of the movie. And he's the only character that you care about. And
yeah, the human character.
I will say the beginning of this. Sorry.
So yeah, no, I agree. The human characters are shit. You don't care about any of them.
Yeah, exactly. They're just crap. I mean, the beginning of this isn't too bad, where you open up with this like nuclear power station in Japan, and there's like this meltdown or whatever, and you know, Bryan Cranston loses his wife, and we find out that it was Godzilla that caused this. And I do like his you know, journey throughout this, trying to find out like what happened to his wife, and you know, he finds out that it's Godzilla, and people think he's like mad and all that. That stuff is really interesting, but then he dies, and the film just becomes a fucking boring train wreck with Aaron Taylor Johnson. I mean, Aaron Taylor Johnson in this is terrible. He plays this soldier and he's so boring. He's one of the most boring characters I've ever seen. Like literally, his acting in this is so fucking wooden. It is so fucking bad. I mean, I've seen tables and
Yeah.
chairs that have given better dramatic performances than him.
He's better
You
in
know?
Tenet, and he's only a cameo in that movie, really.
Yeah, yeah. You know, he can't be good in other things, but here he's just fucking terrible. And like I said, what annoys me about this film is that Godzilla is barely in this film. You know, when you go to a Godzilla film, I just want to be entertained. I just want to have a fun B movie action film where monsters are fighting each other. And this is not the film because literally, the Godzilla, they try and like build up his reveal, and then it's like only at the very end for like 5-10 minutes does he fight, and it's just so fucking frustrating because the rest of the movie is just boring. You know, if you're gonna focus on the human characters, you got to make them interesting. You got to make their backstory interesting. Gareth Edwards, his direction here is just all over the place. I mean, and I was worried when he was going to direct Rogue One because I thought, oh god, he directed this shit, so Rogue One's going to be terrible. But thankfully, Rogue One was way better than this trash. And the film is it's just terrible. I mean, it really is terrible. I mean, you want a good Godzilla film? Watch the original film from 1954. I mean, this came out in I think it was the 2014. So it was the 70th anniversary of the 60th anniversary of the Godzilla franchise, and you know you release it, you know, in 2014, and this is the 60th anniversary film. You know what a fucking disaster. I mean, it's like Die Another Day. It's like, you know, what a terrible fucking anniversary release date for a film, and it's just awful. I mean, to start off your Monsterverse, you know, you start off with the most boring, you know, plotting
Yeah.
shit that I've ever seen. I mean,
you know what it's like. It's almost like Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. Like they went back to start the series and they started in the most boring fucking way possible with fucking taxation. Except this time all they do is like talk about news reports about Godzilla and, you know, focus on this family with Aaron Taylor Johnson. It's just fucking it's just not the Godzilla movie that a lot of people imagined. Although some people actually liked it, but yeah, not for me, unfortunately.
yeah, it's just, as a film, it's just so fucking boring. It just drags itself along. And it's such a forgettable film as well. There really isn't a lot to talk about because the film itself is just so forgettable. It's just a film that you just fucking snore your way through. I mean,
Although that being
I
said,
can
Jack,
remember,
would you say the visuals are any good?
I mean that is one thing I will give it. Like, that is one positive. I do think the CGI is pretty good for Godzilla and stuff, and I do think the visual effects are impressive. But that's one tiny part of the film, and it just kind of annoys me because I mean you've got some cool creatures in this. Like, you've got Godzilla, you've got those creatures that he's fighting in the film, but the film itself is just so boring. I mean, I'll say this. I mean, Elizabeth Olsen, she was good. I mean, her character was decent, but again, you know, the story's just, you know, just boring. I mean, you know, the soundtrack I suppose was decent as well. It's just a film that I just don't care for. I mean, you know, if you're gonna do a Godzilla film, just let the Japanese direct it because they know how to make a Godzilla film. You know, you had the '98 Godzilla film, which was awful, and you have this,
Yeah.
which is terrible as well. And it's just so fucking terrible. It's like watching a Roland Emmerich film. It's like watching 2012. That's how fucking boring and shitty it is.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, Jack, I
it's
don't know
just
if this is a fair comparison to make, but in the case of the human characters, it's like the film seems to want to just focus on the humans, a bit like Transformers. You know, I've yet to see a Transformers movie other than the Bumblebee film, which actually focuses on the Transformers. You know, it's like we always have to follow the humans, and I get it. They can't do action every 5 minutes because it'd be tedious, but like all the characters they're just kind of generic stereotypes, aren't they? Like there's like the family characters, there's the scientists, there's the soldiers or whatever, and you know it just seems to be like they haven't put much thought into the characters. Like if you're gonna have human characters, you know, make it more um relevant and resonant, but they don't. It's just typical. I don't know if you kind of feel like it sort of feels very generic. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I think the problem with the film is that they focus on these human characters, but they're not interesting. But I think if you're gonna focus on human characters, a good example of a film that focuses on human characters, but also like does a good job with the creature is, the Peter Jackson King Kong film. You need like an emotional connection, otherwise you just don't care for these human characters. That's the thing. Like none of these characters have like an emotional connection to Godzilla. There's no like character depth to any of these characters. They're just bland, generic 2D cardboard cutout characters that, we got this generic soldier guy played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, and he got his wife and his kids or whatever, and it's like there is no emotional connection there. And when you want to, when you go to see a Godzilla film, you want to see Godzilla. I mean, the fucking clues in the name Godzilla. It'd be like
Yeah.
going to a James Bond film. James Bond is only in it for like 10 minutes. It's
Yeah.
fucking ridiculous.
And the worst
I
thing
mean,
is they tease it like they tease it when they show him, and then for like 2 seconds, then they cut to a news report. It just pisses me the fuck off. Like okay, fair enough. They were building it up, and I could understand that. But when they built it up, they didn't show him for long enough for you to feel like you were just like, oh, what? We're back to the humans again. I was like, so all this build up was kind of for nothing, really. But yeah, I don't know if you felt that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the build up is just so annoying. Like you said, they'll like go to a close up of Godzilla and then cut away, and it's fucking ridiculous. I mean, when you go to a Godzilla film, you want to see Godzilla fighting creatures throughout the movie. Like you said, it would be tedious if it was just all action from beginning to end with like no characters. But at the same time, you need an engaging story there. You need Godzilla to be in the fucking movie for more than 10 minutes. You need him to have fights throughout the film. You need him to be the main focus of the film because it's a fucking Godzilla film. And the film is it's so boring. It's just, it drags itself along. I mean, the action scenes, I will say, like when they're on screen, the action is good, but it's like by that point in the movie, you're so fucking bored out of your mind that you just don't care. I mean, you just don't care about any of these action scenes because they build it up way too much. And Gareth Edwards, he just has no sense of like pace with this film. Like I said, when I watched it in 2014, I fell asleep, and rewatching it, it was just as fucking boring and dragged out. Like I honestly don't understand why people like this film because it's just so boring. It's just so fucking edge of your sleep. It's Godzilla. It should be edge of your seat instead. It's edge of your fucking sleep. And I mean, it's just. Sorry.
No, I was laughing.
I mean, it's so boring. It really is. It's so boring. And there's that scene as well where he's on the train with that like kid and he's trying to protect the kid, and then you have that final fight in the city, which is kind of cool, and then at the end it's all resolved, and it's just like, I don't care. I don't give a shit. I mean, it's one of the most boring films I've ever seen. It's so fucking dull. It's not the worst movie that I've ever seen though. Like I can't, say it's a 0 or anything like that because there are good things in it. Like I think the first half an hour of the film is quite good. Like I did like the scenes where they go to, I think it's like, sort of like a Chernobyl like place where there's radiation suits and he's there Bryan Cranston, and Bryan Cranston's good in the film. And like I said, the visuals are good. There are some good fight scenes in there, but it's just the thing that lets it down is the main character's boring as fuck. I don't care about the family drama. It just drags itself along. It's so fucking boring. Godzilla is a fucking cameo in his own movie. It's a fucking insult. He's a cameo in his own fucking film. 10 minutes on screen. It's pathetic. It's pathetic.
It's
it really
ever,
is.
and it's one of the most dull movies ever made. I think.
Yeah, it's just boring as fuck. Like I mean, I will never watch this film again. I've seen it twice, and I don't want to watch it again. To be perfectly honest, but
well, I mean,
yeah,
only if I was struggling to sleep would I ever watch it again.
Yeah. If I had insomnia, then maybe I would watch this, because it'd be a perfect cure for insomnia. I just fall asleep watching it. Um, but yeah, it's just crap. It really is. I mean, and the fact that Bryan Cranston, he's advertising the trailer and is only in it for like the first half an hour, it's a fucking joke. I mean, it's a terrible film. I really don't like it. I think it's crap. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not the worst film I've ever seen. There are some good things, like some good action scenes, some good visuals. Bryan Cranston's good when he's in it, and the soundtrack's decent. So I'll close off and I guess I'll give it a 3 out of 10. But yeah,
Well, gee, oh dear. But to be fair, actually, I absolutely agree. I know that people like this film, and they're entitled to their opinion. That's absolutely fine. Like the big hardcore fans of Godzilla will probably get something out of this. I mean, I'll start with the good things. Bryan Cranston, when he's in it, he's great. The visuals are fantastic. Gareth Edwards has a very clear visual eye. And the music, I suppose, is quite good. Other than that, this movie fucking sucks. It's terrible. I'm not going to make any apologies for that. I think this movie is awful. It's not the worst movie ever made, as Jack says, but it's down there. I mean, it's for me probably the worst of this series. It's just a terrible way to start this franchise of monsters hitting each other. I mean, the story is very thin in itself, and it's meant to be some sort of B movie, and that's fine. But it's the biggest tease ever that doesn't deliver. Godzilla is a cameo in his own film, and I think I said that in my review, and I think a lot of people said that when this movie released in 2014. I just think Gareth Edwards got it wrong. I think he got it very wrong in terms of the story. I mean, I still think Gareth Edwards had a lot of work to do to become a better director, but he redeemed himself with Rogue One 2 years later. But to be honest, a lot of my memory of this movie is very hazy because I, like Jack, almost fell asleep watching this movie in the cinema. I really didn't care for it. I really didn't care for it. The guy that I saw it with, he thought it was okay. Like, he didn't think much of it. He liked it more than I did, but I thought it was terrible. The action is fine when it's there. Like it lays on the screen and it's perfectly acceptable, but it's just so boring. Like the human characters are dull and uninteresting, apart from Bryan Cranston. And I agree, the marketing was very misleading. The fact that Cranston is killed off in the first 30 minutes, what was the point? It was kind of pointless. I thought he was meant to be the main character, but yeah, Aaron Taylor Johnson. I just don't know if he really wants to be there, to be honest. He doesn't look like he cares. He doesn't give two shits, really. And again, the characters are all sort of stereotypical. You've got the scientists, you've got the military, you've got the family, and then you've got the monsters that hit each other. So, I think it's a crowd pleaser for a certain audience, but the pacing is really easily the worst thing about this movie. It's just too fucking slow, and it's just so boring. And the fact that they tease Godzilla, and when they do show him, he's there for like a couple of seconds, and they cut away to a news report. I understand they wanted to build up to the reveal to kind of signify the scale of this creature, but it takes too long to do that. And honestly, this movie felt like it was 2.5 hours long. It felt like it was so long. I mean, it's not long. It's like 115 minutes or something, but it feels so much longer because you're just sitting there fucking waiting for something to happen, and it never does. And I've kind of forgotten about most of this film, to be honest. I think Elizabeth Olsen is in it, and she plays Taylor Johnson's wife, which is kind of ironic because they played brother and sister in Avengers: Age of Ultron. But yeah, so I think I don't remember anything else about the movie. It was just so boring. So I'll give it, like Jack, I'll give it a 3 out of 10. Like it's not a complete disaster. There are some good things. The visuals are very stunning and the music is great. And the spectacle when it's there is enjoyable, but there's not a lot of it. And the creature design is good, but yeah, I'm sticking with my rating of 3 out of 10. So fuck that shit. Okay, we'll now move on to the next movie, which I believe is Kong Skull Island. Ugh. Okay, so take it away, Jack. What did you think of this masterpiece?
Well, Kong Skull Island, another shit fest. Sadly,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about
Ugh.
you, but for me, it's a wafer thin, as Alan would say, wafer thin improvement over Godzilla.
Yeah, I'd say it's slightly better than the 2014 one, but that's not really saying much. I just think Godzilla King. Yeah, I mean, I just think Godzilla King of the Monsters it suffers from the same problem as the 2014 Godzilla film. In that Kong, again, he's a fucking cameo in his own fucking movie. Jesus Christ! Didn't you learn anything from Godzilla 2014? I don't care about these human characters. Focus on Kong for fuck's sake. And
Yeah.
the film itself is just—it's not funny. It's not funny at all. Like I didn't see this one in the cinema. Thank God, I watched it on Blu-ray a couple of years ago, and I actually wanted to see it in the cinema at the time because it got good reviews from the critics. But again, I don't understand what the critics see in this film. I mean, it's just crap. It really is crap. I
Yeah,
think
the humor was awful.
yeah. You know, I mean, the thing is that kind of depresses me about this film is that you have a really good supporting cast. I mean, you got Sam Jackson, you got Tom Hiddleston, you got John C. Riley. You got a pretty good supporting cast here, but the characters I just don't give a shit about. And setting it in Vietnam, that's kind of cool, but you know, the film is just—it's so boring. I mean, it's literally like, oh, they're going there to find Kong and yada yada yada. Who gives a shit? And
Yeah.
the humor is just so terrible. Like you got that scene where John C. Riley's got like a hot dog or whatever, and he's making some kind of joke, and it's like, is this supposed to be funny? And what pisses me off about this film is the fucking endless references to Apocalypse Now. You know, Apocalypse Now, great film, Francis Ford Coppola, amazing movie. And all they do is just rip it off. There's so many references and homages to that film. You know, there's that scene where Kong is standing and the helicopters are coming towards him, and you have the sunset in the background. You have that scene where they go up the river in a raft. They literally just copied and pasted the storyline from Apocalypse Now, except this is 1,000 times more shittier. You know, that film is a masterpiece. This film is just fucking. This film's a fucking insult to Apocalypse Now, and it's just so fucking frustrating because you know when I'm watching this film, it's like, you know, for fuck's sake, if I want to watch Apocalypse Now, I'll put in the fucking DVD or Blu-ray. You know, I don't need these fucking endless references to Apocalypse Now. You know, I mean, once or twice you're kind of like, oh, that's nice, it's a nice homage, but the whole film just ends up being a fucking reference bank of Apocalypse Now. There's like references
Yeah.
here, references there,
It's
everywhere.
like the
It's like
movie starts to
fuck.
rely on it because it knows that it's crumbling under its own weight because it's trying to do the Marvel thing of all this humor and it's not working, and then Kong's not on screen enough for anyone to care, and the human characters are kind of struggling to keep it interesting. So yeah, the fact when your movie has to rely on references, that's not a good sign. Die another day. Cough.
Yeah. And the film is just—it's so boring. Like, I really struggled to sit through this. And like I said, I just didn't find the humor funny. Like, there might have been, like, maybe one or two jokes that I laughed at, but I mean, that was kind of it. It was just, you know, it was just so fucking boring. You know, you got a good cast, like I said. I mean, Samuel L. Jackson, good actor, you know, Tom Hiddleston. You know, you've got a good supporting cast here, but I just don't give a fuck about these characters. I mean, they are so generic. They're just a bunch of soldiers. You know, they're out there to get Kong or whatever, and it's like I don't give a fuck. And
Yeah.
that's what
Even Tom
frustrates me.
Hiddleston kind of feels out of place, doesn't he?
Yeah, he kind of does. He does feel a bit out of place, but you know, it annoys me because you've got a decent cast here, and you just waste them. And the thing is, as well, it's like it's the same problem I have with the 2014 Godzilla film. Is where the fuck is Kong in this film? He's hardly in the fucking movie. I mean, I think he's in it more than I mean, I think he gets more screen time than Godzilla did in the 2014 film, but that was fucking 10 minutes. Like, he gets
Yeah.
barely anything to do in this fucking film. He gets barely anything to do, and when he's on screen, I don't care. I mean, and I have to say this as well. I mean, this came out in what was it, 2017, and
Yeah.
12 years after the Peter Jackson King Kong film. And a subscriber of mine pointed this out. Like, the CGI in the Jackson film is actually better than the CGI for Kong in this film. And this is fucking 12
Yeah.
years later. That's pathetic.
I
That's
agree.
just pathetic. Oh, God. And, I mean, I understand what they're doing, like making Kong the size of Godzilla in this film so we can fight him. They did that in the Japanese King Kong versus Godzilla film. That's fine, but I just don't care for King Kong in this movie. Like, at least with the Jackson film, there was emotional connection there. You had all the stuff with, Anne, and that was emotional. This stuff here, it's just like, boring. Fucking like, fucking just end already, because the film is it's so fucking garbage. And the action scenes here aren't bad. The action scenes are good, but I'm just watching this film and thinking to myself, well, this is just a crappy comedy with with Kong, who's barely in the film, and it's just a fucking continuous reference to Apocalypse Now. Like, literally, that's all they do for the whole film, is they just copy scenes from Apocalypse Now. Like I said, the scene where they go up the river in the raft. The scene where you've got all the helicopters approaching Kong and you have the sunset in the background, and it pisses me off. It really pisses me off, because that is a way better film. That is a masterpiece. That is a masterpiece. And people who watch this film who've never seen Apocalypse Now, it's like, well, go and watch that film instead, because it's way better than this piece of garbage. This fucking King Kong piece of shit. That's what it is. And
Yeah.
it just shits all over Apocalypse.
Although, like, having said all that, Jack, sorry to interrupt. All that considered, it's not actually the worst Kong movie, is it?
No, it's not. No, I mean, it is better than King Kong Lives, which, oh God,
Doesn't say much.
Definitely, but it doesn't say much. It's definitely like, it's the worst after that film. I mean, I look forward to Ollie's Stream Epic Major fucking rant on that someday. But yeah, this film is it's garbage. It really is garbage. I mean, there's good things in it. Like I said, I do like some of the visual effects. Some of the action scenes are good, but like some of the comedy here, I mean, most of the comedy is just awful. I do like the Vietnam setting, but the fucking endless references to Apocalypse Now, it just kind of shits on that film, kind of shits on the legacy of that film, because they're trying to copy that film and they just make an inferior version. And like I said, if I want to watch Apocalypse Now, I'll watch it. Stop trying to recreate all these iconic scenes and things from the movie. And it's just a fucking boring arse movie. It's so boring. I just do not like this film. People call it Kong Skull Island. You may as well call it Kong Skunk Island, because the film fucking stinks. It fucking stinks like a skunk, and it's terrible. It really is awful, and it's so forgettable as well. It's like the 2014 Godzilla film. Like, I struggle to remember really any scenes from it, because it's that fucking forgettable. I remember there's one scene where Kong smashes a helicopter. And yeah, that's really it. I can't really remember a huge amount of other scenes in this movie, apart from the references to Apocalypse Now and some of the shitty humor. It's such a forgettable movie. It's just, this is not what I want from a King Kong film. A King Kong film, like a Godzilla film, it should have King Kong front and center. He should not be a fucking cameo in his own movie. And it's just crap. I'm sorry. I mean, people who like this film, has fair enough. Critics like this, I just don't understand it. I just think it's crap. I really don't like it. It's just a terrible film, in my opinion. I mean, it's not abysmal. I mean, like I said, there are some good, visuals in there. The cast try. I do like the Vietnam setting, but King Kong, he's just He's hardly in the movie. The film is boring. The humor is just terrible. Like maybe one or two jokes I laughed at, but that's really it. It's just it's crap. I mean, Samuel Jackson, Tom Hiddleston, they all try, but and John C. Riley, they all try, but it's just a terrible film. It really is. So I'll close off and I'll give this a. I guess I'll give it a 4 out of 10. But yeah,
Oh dear. I guess there weren't enough bananas for Kong. Oh God. Kong Skull Island. Another boring film. Oy vey. What is it with these movies? They're just so boring. I mean, for me, this movie was slightly better than Godzilla 2014. I didn't fall asleep during this one. I was close. It was a wafer thin improvement, but it's not saying much. As Jack said, Kong is a cameo in his own film. He doesn't get a lot to do. The spectacle when it's there is okay, like it's decent enough to watch, but the human characters are all kind of obnoxious and generic. And I mean, even Tom Hiddleston, bless him, who tries, his character can't really save the film. I think his character's called Nick or something, and he's like this sort of tracker explorer guy. I suppose he's meant to be some kind of like I don't know, sort of Steve Irwin guy. Well, I don't really know. Yeah, he's just meant to be some wilderness tracker. But he feels really out of place, to be honest. Not that he's a bad actor, but maybe somebody else in the role would have been more suited. And Brie Larson's in it as well. I don't really remember much about her performance. I think she was just okay. Yeah, Samuel L. Jackson's good, normally. And you have John C. Riley in it for some reason. John C. Riley's character is just... I don't care for him. John C. Riley's a very funny guy. You know, he's been in great comedies, but it kind of reminded me of like Vince Vaughn in Jurassic Park. It just kind of feels out of place. It doesn't feel like he belongs in that universe, if that makes sense. Because yeah, the humor of this movie is just not great. It's very awkward comedy. It kind of reminded me a bit of some of the Marvel movies that do rely a lot on the humor to kind of carry the films, and I don't think that should be the case. I mean, the setting of the jungle's kind of cool. I mean, I haven't actually seen Apocalypse Now, but I believe what Jack is saying about the references, but I haven't seen Apocalypse Now, so yeah. It's just such a boring mess of a movie, and it just did not grab me, and I'd struggled to watch it. I thought the pacing was really slow, and it's really not a film I'd want to go back to. And like Jack said, it's a film that lacks emotional connection. At least with Peter Jackson's King Kong, he invested in it with a real heart. Say what you will about the runtime, but he invested in it with a real heart and a passion, and that's something that this movie just really lacks. So I don't know what else to say, really. I guess I'll probably just have to close off and give it a 3 out of 10 again. But it's slightly better than the previous film, but not a great start to Kong's introduction to this universe. It's just, yeah, boring. But now we move on to the third movie, which is actually the sequel to Godzilla King of the Monsters. He sure as hell ain't the king of the swingers. So, Jack, would you please do us the honor of giving us your thoughts and explain why you suck your cock to Godzilla King of the Monsters?
why do you suck your cock to Soul? No, joking. Well,
He's my asshole!
well,
Really joking.
well, yeah, well, I know all these like slightly disagrees with me on this film. He just thinks that's possible, but I think Godzilla King of the Monsters. I think it's a pretty good film. I mean, I think for me, this is what I wanted from a Godzilla film. It's not trying to be a great movie. It's not trying to be a masterpiece. It's just a fun B-movie action film, and that's what I wanted from the first one, which I sadly didn't get. I thought the first one was just crap, boring as fucking. I know the critics didn't like this film, and they liked the first one, which I don't understand. But for me, this is definitely getting the series on track. I think this is where the series starts to pick up for me. The previous two were just I didn't care for, but this one I thought was pretty good. I actually like the storyline of this. I like the idea of going back and turning back the clock to the time of the dinosaurs, and it's sort of relevant now because it's talking about climate change and the reason why dinosaurs were such successful predators was because they didn't build skyscrapers and they didn't have pollution and all that. So they want to return the Earth to like a more pure age, which is actually something they did in Doctor Who as well. Invasion of the Dinosaurs, but the less said about that crap, the better. I just think it's a lot of. I just think it's a lot of fun. I think the human characters here are better. I like Madison Russell. I think the character is, or I think she's quite good. The girl in the film, and I do like Godzilla in this film because Godzilla actually gets shit to do. He gets to fight in the city at the end. There's some really great action scenes in this film, which I really enjoy. Like there's that fight with the three-headed or two-headed dragon, whatever it is. And I think the action in this is awesome. I mean, if you just want to, if you're going to a Godzilla film and you just want to see monsters fighting each other, then this film is definitely for you. If you're more into if you wanted a more deep personal film, then I don't really think this franchise is something that you would sort of go in and expect a deep emotional masterpiece, something like King Kong by Peter Jackson. I just think it's a fun B movie film. I mean, it does have flaws. I will admit, there are some things in there that I wasn't a fan of. But I do think the pacing at times can drag. I think sometimes they focus too much on the action. And when I was watching it, there were some scenes where I was like, okay, come on, can we, pick up the pace a bit? It does drag.
I think it's too long. I think this one is the longest actually of the series. It runs I think it's nearly 2 hours 15 minutes or something. It's a bit too long. I think for my liking anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I would have cut it down to 2 hours, maybe an hour and 45 minutes, something like that. I mean, you didn't need to make it 2 hours and 15 minutes. And I do think one of the problems of the film is maybe they focus a bit too much on the action, and some of these action scenes drag out a bit, and you're kind of saying, okay, can we have a break from the action? Can we?
But it is better than the first two films. It's definitely better than the first two films.
Yeah, but I mean, I just, for me, I think I like this film because it's what I want from a Godzilla film. I'm not expecting this, deep emotional film. I mean, the first one tried to focus on the human characters and it just completely failed. And Godzilla was a cameo in his own film. Here, at least, Godzilla is the main focus of the film, and you have a lot of good action scenes. And the action in this is pretty fun. I will say this: I was entertained by the film. The action, when it was on screen, I was like, "Yep, this is what I want from a Godzilla film," and it's something that the 2014 film did not deliver on. I just think the 2014 film was just, just fucking dull as dishwater, really. Yeah, Skunk Island was crap as well. It just, it was just boring. This film, I do think, like I said, the pacing does suffer at certain points. Like I said, you could have trimmed it down, you could have made it shorter, but I do think this film, like I said, has a lot of spectacle to it. I actually think the plot of it is actually pretty relevant today, like climate change and sort of going back, they're trying to bring the world back to a more pure time. So I mean, the film for me delivered. It definitely delivered. I thought the human characters here were better. Like they were more fleshed out. I thought I cared more for them, at least than the 2014 film and Kong Skunk Island. And I did think the final battle was really awesome, where you got Kong fighting in the city, and I think they're about to blow up that missile or use the nuclear bomb or whatever at the end. That was pretty cool. So the action here, I think, is awesome. There's that scene as well, I think, where a volcano blows up and you got that three-headed or two-headed dragon creature in the film. So there's a lot of stuff in there that I like, and I just think it's a fun film. Like I said, it's nothing great. It's it's nothing I'm gonna write home about. I'm not gonna say, oh, this is a masterpiece. This is like one of the best films ever made. But for me, it's a fun, entertaining B movie, and that's kind of what I want from. That's kind of what I wanted from this film, and that's kind of what I want from the Monsterverse. Just have a bit of fun, have a bit of action on screen, and and I think it's an entertaining movie. So I'll close off, and I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
Ooh. So if you had to date, if you had to date one of these three films, it would definitely be that one.
Well, out of the first three, this one is definitely the best.
Yeah, I agree. I think. Well, I don't like it as much as you. I think Godzilla King of the Monsters is an improvement over the first two films, because at the very least, I mean, it suffers under the same problems, I think, but it's more fun. There's more action. They crank up the action to 11, and at the end of the day, these movies are not really made for the story. They're made for the spectacle, and that's kind of what I came to realize when watching this film. Godzilla King of the Monsters is better because Godzilla's in it more, and I think that is what really affected the first one. Having him not in it, for so long was a real detriment to the film. It really affected the pacing. This one is paced better, but it is too long. I think that it should have been trimmed. There are parts which do drag quite a lot, but the spectacle is probably up to this point the most impressive. But we'll get to the fourth film in just a sec. I think the human characters were probably the best they were here. I mean, I don't mind sort of Kyle Chandler's character. I think he's pretty cool. And Madison, from what I remember, she was good, but it's been years since I've seen this film. The CGI is good, and it is a bit better than it was in the first film, and it is just more fun. I thought, okay, out of all of the first three, this was the one that entertained me the most. I thought, actually, you know what? This is all right. It's fun. I'm not going to say it's amazing, because I still think some of the humans are a bit boring, and I think a lot of the film is quite boring, and it suffers under a lot of the same issues that the first two had. But it's the watchable one. The story is not particularly deep or provocative or anything. It's just they're trying to deal with Godzilla yet again. It's kind of more of the same, like the first one, but it is just slightly more entertaining. So I'll be nice. I'll give this movie a pass. I'll give it a 6 out of 10, but I don't think I can give it any more than that, because I didn't get much else out of it. And I mean, I'm always willing to give these movies a chance, but I wouldn't call myself a huge fan of the Monsterverse. But I mean, we'll come on to the Kong versus Godzilla in a sec. But yeah, I mean, they sort of, I think they did redeem themselves slightly from the first Godzilla. So I think maybe they should have just not bothered with the first Godzilla and started with this film, Godzilla King of the Monsters. I mean, you didn't really need two Godzilla films before the crossover, I think. But whatever. Anyway, yeah, sorry, I just don't remember much about King of the Monsters. It's been a couple of years since I've seen it. But now we come on to the fourth, and at the moment it's the final film, but there probably will be more, of course, because money, money, money. And this is the one that everybody really wanted to see. Godzilla versus Kong. Now, I know that Jack is going to have quite a lot to say about this one, so Jack, take it away. Tell us why you think this film is a masterpiece of absolute shit.
Well, I don't think it's a masterpiece, but I do really enjoy it. Godzilla vs. Kong, this is a film that they've been building up a while for. It's been 7 years. You had the first, two Godzilla films, and you Kong Skull Island. So, we've been waiting 7 years for this film, and, it's not the first time King Kong and Godzilla fought each other. There was the Toho film, King Kong versus Godzilla, but I just think this is a really fun film. I just really enjoy King Kong, Kong versus Godzilla. I just think it's a really fun film, and
Easily the best of the four movies.
I think what else? Yeah, it's the best of the Monsterverse. I think by far. I think this one, for me, I think it has the best story. It is the I think the characters here I care for more, and what I really like about it as well is that I mean you could make the criticism that's just an action film, and it is in a lot of ways, but it does have some good characters in there. Like I did really like that girl, who communicated through sign language. And we see at the start that she's communicating to Kong, and Kong he's inside this dome, and he tries to get out, and they're bringing him to the center of the Earth, and Hollow Earth. I think it's called something like that, and I do think the characters here are better than in the other films. I mean, I like the fact they brought back Madison Russell from Godzilla King of the Monsters. It's nice to see her return. You got Kyle Chandler.
Yeah.
He's good.
I mean, to be fair, wasn't there much
I think
point
Godzilla
of Madison, though? I didn't think there was much point of her being in it, but nice to see her back, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mind that because, we find out that she's trying to find out about Godzilla. And then later on, she goes to see that guy who's, she listens to podcasts and he's like this conspiracy theorist. And we find out that this company, Apex, I think it is behind all this, like, stuff with, Godzilla and Kong. And they're trying to find out about Hollow Earth. And we find out that there are these two titans. And I just think there's a lot of, fun action in this film. I like some of the scenes as well. I like the scene where she's communicating to Kong, and we find out that Kong can communicate back to her with sign language, and that really is the emotional. That really is the emotional hook of the movie, where you've got Kong and this little deaf girl, and I think they're very charming. That works really well, and there's some great action scenes. Like I like that whole scene where he's shackled up, and then we see the Godzilla arise and they fight on the ships. That was a really great, action scene. It's about halfway through the film. And I think that's really cool. I really like that action scene. I like the song as well, Loving Arms by Elvis Presley. I think that was quite good. You got a good soundtrack. And, you got some good scenes in there. Like, I think there are some interesting scenes in the film where we find out that Godzilla's come back after many years and it's destroyed the city, and they don't know why it's destroyed the city because Godzilla's supposed to be good or whatever, and we find out that something's like manipulating it, and then we see it fights Kong halfway through the film, and I definitely prefer this over the Japanese original film, the Toho film. I do like that film. It is quite charming, but I just think that the effects here look better. The action scenes are epic, and going into a Godzilla versus Kong film, that's all I want. I just want to see these two beasts slug it out on screen and fight each other, and that's what I got. And I was I was impressed with that. I was impressed with the action scenes. I just had I just had fun watching this. I just think it's a fun popcorn munching film. You don't watch these films for the characters, the human characters, or the story. You're not going in there expecting a really deep artistic film. I just wanted a big slugfest between these two characters, and that's what I got. And I actually think the story of this is kind of interesting. The two titans and the Hollow Earth stuff, and we see at one point that they get to Hollow Earth, and we find out that Kong has a family there, and there's this like valley and everything, and he fights Godzilla. I thought that was really cool. I mean, some of the human characters here aren't, some of them are well developed, but some of them aren't that well developed. Like, I think some of the human villains in this are a little bit weak, I will say. Some of the human villains just aren't particularly memorable. And I do think this sort of suffers a little bit like King of the Monsters did, and some of the pacing does drag at certain points. Maybe some of the action scenes went on a bit too long. Some of the pacing does suffer a little bit. But for the most part, I think it's a fun, enjoyable action film. There's a great scene where Kong crushes that that ship at one point that the bad guys are in, and he gets this like dorsal fin axe, which is quite cool, which is from another Godzilla creature, and he powers it up, and we see him fighting Godzilla in the city, and a little girl says, oh, Godzilla, says to Kong, Godzilla isn't your enemy, and there's that interesting scene where his heart stops and they have to start it again with this like defibrillator thing on the spaceship. I thought that was kind of cool, and I do like the action there. There's that, I think that final action scene, especially between Godzilla, Kong, and Mecha Godzilla, I thought that was awesome. And that's what I like about this film is that it's not just Godzilla versus Kong. You also have Mecha Godzilla from the Godzilla films, and that was really cool. And you see at one point that it gets taken over by Hollow Earth or whatever, and the guy inside the machine dies. And you see at one point it's about to kill Godzilla, and then Kong comes and he uses the dorsal fin axe, and Godzilla powers it up. And I love that scene at the end where he rips off Mecha Godzilla's head, and he destroys it. And I just think it's a really fun film. It's just a really fun action film. My only complaints with the film would be maybe the pacing does drag at certain points, and maybe the human villains aren't the best. But apart from that, I just think this has the best action of the Monsterverse. I think it is by far the best action. There's a lot of great action scenes. I did like some of the human characters in there, and some of them weren't well developed, but some of them were like well developed and they were quite good. Like the little deaf girl who communicates with Kong. That was sort of the emotional hook of the film. And I like the fact that Godzilla and Kong, they don't kill each other at the end. They team up and defeat Mecha Godzilla. I mean, really, it should be called Kong versus Godzilla versus Mecha Godzilla, but it's just a really entertaining. Yeah, but I mean, for me, just a really entertaining action movie. It's just a ton of fun. I mean, like I said, if you're going in there and you're expecting like a really deep film with well-developed characters, then this is the wrong franchise for you. Because I mean, the clues in the name Monsterverse. These films, they're just meant to be entertaining B movies with action, and I think this film definitely for me is the best because it's just a fun movie. It's just a popcorn munching movie. I can just watch this and have a lot of fun. It's just a ton of fun, man. Seeing it on the big screen was great. Just to see all that awesome action, like Godzilla and Kong fighting each other, and Mecha Godzilla, and the soundtrack, like I said, really good. It's a fun, entertaining film. The CGI, the visual effects are very good for this one. I had a blast with it. I thought it was really fun. Like I said, it's not perfect. Like I said, some of the human characters aren't the best in terms of development, and I do think the pacing does drag at certain points. But overall, I thought the film was very enjoyable, and for me, it's definitely the best of the Monsterverse. And yeah, so I mean, to close off, I'll give this one a 9 out of 10. I thought it was very enjoyable and yeah, definitely the best out of the four. But yeah.
Oh, well, thank you, Jack, for sharing that. And yeah, I certainly agree. Well, to an extent, anyway, that Godzilla versus Kong is easily the best of these four movies so far. It's the most polished. It's definitely the most polished, and it's the one that people wanted to see. They wanted to see these two slug it out on the big screen. And to be fair, like you said, you have to go into this film knowing that it is just made for the spectacle. It's not made to be deep or provocative, although it does try and have an emotional connection, like you said, with the little girl and her connection to King Kong. But aside from that, the movie is not an emotional drama. It's monsters hitting each other, and that's fine for a sort of mainstream audience. And I think there's clearly a market for that sort of thing, and that's fine. But for me, I'm not going to say it's perfect. I do think there are some problems. I think some of the humor in this film is a bit awkward. Once again, it's trying to do the Marvel thing of all this humor and doesn't really land, to be honest. Especially the conspiracy theorist. I think his name's Benny. I can't exactly remember, but I don't really like the humor with his character.
also, I think there's kind of an overabundance of characters in the film. I think there's some human characters you do sort of think, do they really need to be here? Like, there's a lot of them that just kind of feel shoehorned in. I mean, they bring back Madison from the last film, and that's fine. But they bring her friend along as well. Like, what does he actually need to be there for? Like, I don't really understand why he's in it. But Carl Chandler, why is he in it again? It's just like they're just trying to do a Marvel thing of connecting all the films together with the same characters, and it's just not going to mean as much because these are not as interesting characters. But yeah, the movie is visually really good, and that's definitely something, like, especially when they go down and explore sort of the Hollow Earth concept. That's pretty cool. Um, and the action sequences are definitely the best of the series so far. They are spectacular beyond belief, and my favorite action sequence has to be the one at sea. I thought that was really good, that sequence, because I felt the scale of it more, which is ironic because usually in the city you feel the sense of scale, but the fact that it would come back to the humans trying to survive the sort of boat crash as well was cool. Um, as for which of the two monsters I was on, like whether I was Team Godzilla or Team Kong, I'm gonna kind of say Team Kong. I'm more a fan of King Kong than Godzilla. I'm gonna be honest. Sorry, but yeah, it's a fun movie. I think it's definitely fun. I do agree the pacing does drag quite a bit. I did kind of lose interest in a few sections, but it was the right length. I think it was just under 2 hours long, and I think that was perfectly fine because there's only so much of the monsters hitting each other that you can handle, especially when you compare it to something like Transformers, which had those movies are entertaining for a few minutes, but then you realize they're ridiculously overlong, so you can only stand so much of it. The movie is a crowd pleaser, and it definitely will entertain audiences, no question about it. But again, some of the humans I don't care for, but I at least appreciate the fact that this one tried to have an emotional hook to the story, and especially like the little girl who does the sign language. I mean, she's arguably the best performance in the film. Not just because of that, but like the expressions on her face. She gives a genuinely emotional performance, which is really really good. And the CGI for Kong is a lot better in this film actually, and the expressions on his face are more believable. It looks like he's more aware of his surroundings than he was in Kong Skull Island. And yeah, nice use of the Elvis song as well. That was cool. It's not amazing, it's not a masterpiece, but it did what it set out to do, and I think a lot of people have genuinely reacted positively to it and have thought, yeah, this is pretty good. And yeah, that's what I think. I think it's pretty good. It's pretty fun. It's definitely the best of this series, but it's pretty, decent, average. So I'll probably give this one 7 out of 10. It's good, and it's certainly entertaining. Anyway, that pretty much is it. So that kind of wraps up the series. But before we go, we might as well rank the movies and rate the movies out of 40. I mean, there's obviously going to be more movies in the future from this franchise, but yeah. So Jack, if you want to kick this off and give us your ratings and your rankings and your total score out of 40, please.
Okay, well, as for how I would rank the films, number 4 would be Godzilla 2014, obviously. Number 3 would be Kong Skunk Island. I mean, sorry, Kong Skull Island. Number 2 would be Godzilla King of the Monsters, and number 1 would be Kong versus Godzilla. And adding up my scores, I gave Godzilla 2014 3 out of 10. I gave Kong Skull Island a 4 out of 10. I gave Godzilla King of the Monsters an 8 out of 10. And I gave Kong vs. Godzilla 9 out of 10. So overall, that's 24 out of 40, which is all right. I mean, and I think that's how I would sum up this franchise. I think it's a very mixed bag. There's 2 films I think are pretty good, and there are 2 films I think are shit. So it's been a pretty uneven franchise so far, but I do look forward to what they do in the future. I am kind of looking forward to what they'll do at the next film in the Monsterverse. But yeah, it's a very uneven series. Like I said, 2 films I like and 2 films I think are crap. But yeah, so I mean, that's all I really have to say about the Monsterverse franchise. But yeah,
I'm sorry, I missed your total score. What was your total score out of 40?
24 out of 40.
24. That's cool. Right. Excellent. So, yeah, as for me, my thoughts are kind of similar. I do think it's a very, very uneven series of films so far. It really needs to I think it really needs to propel itself a bit more. And I think the new film probably will help it become more popular. If it is to succeed, it needs to try and do something that will give it sustainable life. I think a lot of these movies are very similar, and that's fine. And obviously, there will be people that will stick by them no matter what. But in order to retain people's interest, I think they do need to try and expand what they're going to do instead of becoming too formulaic. But as for my overall thoughts so far, excuse me. Well, Godzilla, the first one, is a 3 out of 10. Kong Skull Island is a 3 out of 10. Godzilla King of the Monsters is a 6 out of 10. And of course, Godzilla vs. Kong is 7 out of 10. So 3 of 3 is 6, plus 6 is 12. 12 plus 7 is 19. 19 out of 40, which is just under halfway marks, which isn't terribly great, but it's okay. Like it's so far, I guess it's an okay series of films, but I think half the series is pretty crap, but the other half ranges from passable to decent. I would like the series to surprise me. I would like the series to do something unexpected, which I know is hard for a series like this, which is so much about the spectacle. So yeah, I don't know what they're going to do going forward, but I hope that Godzilla vs. Kong was successful enough for them, and I hope that they can sort of look at new directions and ways to expand the series. But I wouldn't call it one of my favorite franchises at all, but it was a good one to see. Certainly a good one to see, especially the recent film. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts, really. That's all I think we've got to say on this series so far. What do you guys all think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Please comment down below. Let us know. Give us your ratings and rankings. And what do you think of the series overall? And which is your favorite? And what would you like to see in the future of this series? So, yeah. Before we close off, Jack, is there anything you want to address or say before we finish?
no, not really. Just hopefully the next film in this franchise will be pretty good, whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, they might introduce more monsters in the next film. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that they will do. To what end, I don't know. But, like I said, I hope the series surprises us and does something unexpected. But they're going to have to work hard to try and, do that and keep people's interest. And again, hopefully they're not going to become too formulaic. I mean, of course, they're never going to get rid of human characters. I mean, they need human characters, and that's fine. But we'll see. As for Kong and Godzilla, will they return? Who knows? But, yeah. So anyway, that's kind of it, folks. Thank you all for watching and listening. And stay tuned next time when we talk about other things. So until then, I'm Mr. Thomas11, and this is Jack the Film Fanatic. See you soon. Bye for now.